Imagine waking up one morning to discover that your private information may have been handed over in a lawsuit where, plot twist, you weren't even named. Just a vague title, a stack of documents, and a lot of unanswered questions. Sounds like the plot of a legal thriller, right? Except this story isn't coming from Netflix. It's unfolding in real time, with Blake Lively, Stephanie Jones, and a mysteriously named case called Vanzan v. Does 1 to 10 at the center of the controversy. So why are legal commentators, internet sleuths, and pop culture watchers calling this an alleged sham lawsuit? And how does a case with no actual names allegedly manage to collect sensitive information anyway? Pull up a chair. This one gets interesting fast. At first glance, Vanzan v. Does 1 to 10 sounds harmless, almost boring. But legal insiders know that cases like this can be anything but ordinary. Does 1 to 10 is a placeholder. It's used when plaintiffs claim they don't yet know who the defendants are. Think of it as saying, I'll name names later, once I get some information. And that's where the curiosity begins. Why file a lawsuit without naming a single defendant? Why not notify the people whose data you're allegedly seeking? And most importantly, who decides what information can be handed over before anyone even knows they're involved? These questions sit at the heart of why critics allege this case wasn't about justice, but about access. And if access was the goal, access to what exactly? According to the allegations, Blake Lively filed this lawsuit without naming specific defendants, listing only does 1 to 10. Critics argue that this may have been a way to sidestep due process, the legal principle that ensures people are notified and given a chance to defend themselves. In plain language, you can't defend yourself if you don't know you're being targeted. Normally, if someone wants your information through a lawsuit, you're notified. You can challenge it. You can hire a lawyer. You can say, absolutely not. But in this case, the lawsuit allegedly created a workaround. And that workaround leads us straight to one key figure. According to the allegations, Blake Lively allegedly gave a subpoena tied to this lawsuit to Stephanie Jones, a third party who is not named as a defendant and not included in the lawsuit. If you're not a defendant, and you're not named in the case, and no one has officially been sued yet, why are you handing over documents? That's the question critics are asking. Instead of quashing the subpoena, which means formally challenging it in court, Stephanie Jones allegedly handed over everything. To outside observers, it looked less like compliance and more like coordination. Coincidence? Or something more calculated? Critics argue that this lawsuit allegedly allowed information to be obtained without notifying the very people whose data was being sought. Imagine someone opening your mail, photocopying it, and then saying, well, you would have known eventually. That's the logic some believe is being applied here. Blake Lively allegedly claims that everyone should have known who is going to be sued. But critics respond with a simple question. If everyone knew, why weren't they named? A lawsuit without defendants. How does that even work? This lawsuit allegedly moved forward without naming a single person, yet managed to produce subpoenas and gather information. No defendants. No formal notice. No chance to object. Legally speaking, that's like throwing a party and charging admission without sending invitations. Critics argue that this structure wasn't accidental. They claim it was a tool, not a mistake. And when lawsuits start to look like tools instead of disputes, people start asking uncomfortable questions. Let's be clear, no court has officially ruled that this was a sham lawsuit. The word alleged matters. It's tempting to dismiss this as Hollywood problems. Big names, big lawyers, big headlines. But here's the uncomfortable truth. If this strategy works for celebrities, it can work for anyone. That's why this case has legal watchers paying close attention. It's not about Blake Lively alone, it's about precedent. And precedent has a way of outliving the headlines. If the allegations are true, Vanzan v. Does 1 to 10 wasn't meant to reach a dramatic trial, it was meant to open doors that would otherwise be closed. And once those doors are open, you can't unsee what's inside. That's the part that makes people uneasy. Because if lawsuits can be used this way, then the legal system becomes less about fairness and more about strategy. Even after all the filings and statements, some questions still hang in the air. Why wasn't Stephanie Jones named in the lawsuit? Why were no defendants identified before subpoenas were issued? Why was there no apparent effort to quash the subpoena? And how many people were affected without ever knowing? This case has sparked conversations about due process, transparency, and power, and those conversations don't disappear quietly. Do you think lawsuits like this protect justice or quietly undermine it? Where should courts draw the line between investigation and intrusion? Drop your thoughts in the comments.